Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Blake once again from the Avid Entries, back with yet another tool, another chapter out of Shadows Before Dawn. Sorry, it's been a good week. I'm a week late with the next part. I said I was gonna upload the tool number 4 last Friday. It's been a crazy week, depressing week, but I'm finally back. We're gonna get on to tool number 4 today. And as usual, I'll try and save some time at the end to reflect and just share some of my thoughts really quickly. I think tool number 4 is a little bit longer than 3. Yeah, it's a more decently sized chapter, I guess you could say. So let's jump into it. Tool number 4 is filling up your own cup. First section, the elixir of love. It won't take forever to learn how to love yourself, but self-love is a lifelong process. When you love someone, you never ask the question, how long am I going to have to love this person? You just love them. It's no different for the relationship between you and yourself. For the relationship between you and yourself to flourish, it needs to be maintained with love. Most of us spend our time trying to give love to others, but we never seem to take the time to give love to ourselves. This is a recipe for unhappiness in all of its many forms. We are all trying to get love from each other, but all of our love tanks are empty. In essence, we are like beggars who are begging from each other. Interesting. For this reason, I want to introduce an analogy to you called the cup analogy. Let's pretend that every being on this earth is a cup, so this world is made up of nothing but tightly packed cups. Love is the fluid that these cups desire to be filled with, but in this world we live in, these cups don't tip. So every attempt to show love to others by spilling our love fluid into their cups is done in vain. It doesn't work in a world where the cups do not tip. So in this world, how would you go about filling up other people's cups? You would fill up your own cup to such an extent that it overflowed. Interesting. This is the way every commodity actually works. When you fill yourself up to the point where you have enough of any commodity, the commodity overflows, and the spillover nourishes the world. That's interesting. Next section, treating love as a scarcity. But what about the people who base their lives on greed? They are scrambling to fill their cups with love as well, but will it work? Let's see. Greed is not a natural human condition. In fact, it's not a natural condition of any being in existence. Greed occurs only when someone feels as if they do not have enough, and that person becomes focused on lack, and convinced of the lack in their own life. It's a condition that causes deep suffering. Greed tends to occur in someone's life if they are the kind of person who doesn't focus on filling up their own cup. And it's most likely to occur if a person doesn't feel capable of filling up their own cup and thus feels that they need to take things from others in order to fill up their own cup. On the other hand, when we as human beings feel as if we have enough, we are naturally drawn towards sharing. In fact, sharing becomes our joy. Our feeling of abundance fills our being, but it doesn't work well to tell someone else that they have but it doesn't work to tell someone else that they have enough and need to share. They have to feel that abundance themselves. If you try to tell them your truth, all this does is make them feel as if the commodity which they have precious little of is being taken from them. In other words, asking someone to share what they feel they do not have enough of is no different than asking a starving child to share their food. Scarcity is in the mind, and scarcity of love is no different. So the moral of this analogy is that when you're starting to learn how to love yourself, you need to think in terms of filling up your own cup. Next section, like flowers opening to the sun. If I were to ask you right now to list some ways that you could show love to someone else, you can most likely give me some examples. This is because we have become accustomed to the idea of giving to others. But now I want you to come up with a list of ways that you could show love to yourself. Scan your life and ask yourself, What are some ways that I can think of to show love to myself? Write down your list or key it into a file. Record all the ways you can think of and make this list as personal as possible. The more creative you get with this and the more ideas you come up with, the better. Here are some examples you might find on that list, or find on this list. Ways that I can show myself love. Asking myself, what would someone who loves themselves do right now? Telling the truth, especially to myself, honoring my feelings and responding to those feelings. Remember that feelings are important signals, making happiness and how I feel the number one priority of my life, honoring myself and who I really am because no one knows what makes me happy but me, recognizing that the universe is literally made of love. If I open myself to receive like a flower opening to the sun, then everything is possible. Spending my day scavenger hunting my environment and people I'm with for things I enjoy about it or about them, and then focusing on what I'm grateful for. Writing a list of positive aspects about myself which I really believe, admitting to my desires and why I want them, and recognizing that it's my right to want the things that I want, letting myself go in the direction of my bliss, no matter how crazy or risky it seems, admitting to what scares me, reading books that make me feel good about myself, finding ways that I can make myself feel safe and making them a priority no matter what is going on or what is pressing or urgent, especially when I feel unsafe, watching movies that have feel-good or inspirational stories, laughing and seeking out things that make me laugh because laughter is fuel for my soul, eating foods that are in line with my highest good, prioritizing my own health and happiness above anything else. I can't be of service to someone any other way than by teaching by example, forgiving myself for having made mistakes, not letting fear keep me from what I want, realizing that it's okay to not be okay, not doing things that I don't want to do, allowing myself to admit when I'm wrong or have made a mistake, trusting in my higher self, and that if I let go and trust, I will flow in the direction of what is best for me, praising myself instead of being critical. For every criticism I come up with, 3 compliments for myself, allowing my enjoyment of things to be more important than my principles. For example, if I think I have to stop to get something done, but I'm miserable doing it, I stop. Allowing myself to have slip-ups without thinking I'm all the way back to square one. So there's a lot of these. Keeping only beliefs which are useful and beneficial to me, communicating my true feelings to those around me, making a list of the reasons other people may want me for a friend and like being around me, not comparing myself to those whom I envy, not spending time around people who make me feel bad about myself, asking others for physical touch when I want it, allowing myself to accept affection from others, paying attention to what my body is telling me and heeding it. Stop living life by other people's values, beliefs, desires, or priorities, and start living by my own. Letting go of what does not serve me anymore, including beliefs, patterns, actions, addictions, and thoughts. Treating myself how I believe others deserve to and want to be treated. Realizing that it's okay to ask for help, and then asking for help. Picking the path of least resistance. Recognizing when I'm living according to fear instead of desire. Meditating. Stopping smoking, going out to dinner when I want to, cooking when I want to, going shopping occasionally to show myself that I care enough about myself to have the things that I like around me, saving money so I can allow myself to feel secure, expressing my own creativity in ways that I enjoy, such as painting, drawing, making collages, or writing, keeping a journal, writing down a list of what makes me happy from the smallest things to the biggest things, and committing to doing one thing from the list every day. That's a long list for you to take from. So just some examples. Next section, keep up your efforts. Let me get some water here. The more that you learn about loving yourself, the more you can add to this list. You can never go, you can go over on the list on a monthly basis and ask yourself if you are still living in accordance with the things you have written down. If not, Look for the ways you're contradicting the things on your list by living your life the way you are. Then decide what one thing you can do with what you have from where you are. In order to live a life that better reflects self-love, I'm suggesting you pick just one thing, because I want you to be able to commit to it without being overwhelmed. When we do not love ourselves, we have the tendency to be very good at coming up with any way we might be failing and piling that on top of our heads until we can't move. When we look over the ways we aren't living in accordance with our self-love list and pick just one thing we can do to live more in accordance with it, we are giving ourselves somewhere to start. If you do find yourself feeling bad, just stop where you are and ask yourself, what is one thing I could do right now to fill up my own cup? Then act on that. Then act on the answer you receive, regardless of what you think or what you have been told. You do have the courage to do something revolutionary. You do have it. You do have what it takes to act on behalf of your own happiness. The goal of loving yourself isn't to become a little isolated. The goal of loving yourself is to become a little isolated universe in and of yourself, where you no longer need or want anything from anyone. The goal is to get you to a space where you are attracting into your experience the kind of people and things that add to your happiness, so you can be loved in the way you've always wanted to be loved. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, so I guess this wasn't that long of a section, but it definitely had a lot of interesting things. Let me try and find the part that stuck out to me the most. I know it was somewhere. I have to go back and find it here. Give me a quick second. I think I passed it. So I think it's this section that was about treating love as a scarcity and the whole concept of greed. There was one thing in particular that stuck out to me. I'm trying to find it. I want to find the exact sentence. So this is on the concept of greed. So it says, in other words, asking someone to share what they feel they do not have enough of is no different than asking a starving child to share their food. So one very interesting thing about greed, and I can say this just based on my own personal experience, because I mean, I'm definitely a greedy person in some aspects. In some aspects, I am most certainly greedy. Is one thing I can't speak on behalf of everybody who knows their own tendencies of greed, but for me personally, when there is something I am greedy about and I'm called out on it, it's almost like like I feel like most people know when they're being quote unquote greedy, but it's really not something that it's almost not something that you choose in the sense of it being like, oh, okay, I'm gonna intentionally be this way because forget what they don't have, I'm all I care about is me. It really does come from a sense of like scarcity. It's almost like, I don't want to say like an illness, but it's almost like a sort of ailment where it's just like you actually do feel like you need as much as you're taking or as much as you're hoarding, I guess you can say. It's almost like a need that, yeah, it's almost more like a need than it is a want. At least that's kind of how, for me personally, that's kind of how it appears to me. So, if somebody calls me out for being greedy on a certain thing, it's really because I feel like I need as much as what I'm taking, or I need as much as what I currently have. And yeah, I guess it does sort of stem from, I guess, experiences of just never having enough of a certain thing, and it can really translate into, other aspects of your life. There was one other part that stuck out to me a lot. I think it was a spilling cup analogy. So I think the idea or the premise is that everybody on Earth were basically all cups, and I kind of want to find exactly what she said about that because that was pretty interesting. Yeah, so we're all trying to get love from each other, but all of our love tanks are empty. In essence, we are like beggars who are begging from each other. And then she goes into the cup analogy. So love is a fluid that these cups desire to be filled with, but in this world we live in, these cups don't tip. So every attempt to show love to others by spilling our love fluid into their cups is done in vain. It doesn't work in a world where the cups do not tip. So in this world, how would you go about filling other people's cups? You would fill up your own cup to such an extent that it overflowed. So if you think of if you wanna take this concept and you think of like a bunch of cups, plastic, paper, whatever, just all bunched right next to each other. Think of them all being empty, and think of the fluid being the love that you're giving to yourself. And so if you can only focus on yourself, let's say you got like a bottle of water, right? It's your bottle of water, and it only can be fed to yourself into your own cup. So if you think about that, you pour that entire bottle of water into one cup. Obviously, if it gets too full, it's going to start spilling into the other cups next to it, and so on and so forth. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because it's like, if you really do kind of just focus on your own happiness to a certain extent, it really can just spread to other people. And personally, I can say that is true. Like, at least for me, there have been instances, believe it or not, where that has definitely applied to me. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like, again, I think I brought this up in a past part or past reading, that I feel like, making your own self happy, or the concept of loving yourself, has been so demonized, I guess you can say. So a lot of people are just not really focused on it so much. You always hear people talk about, we have to love one another and all of this, but it's like, you don't really hear too much about people saying, oh, you need to love yourself, you need to figure out more ways how to love yourself better, stuff like that. It's really always focused on what you need to do for other people, which is fine in theory, but I feel like the lack for personal love for ourselves is just so low, and nobody really talks about it all that much. You hear about it sort of sometimes in passing, but it seems like whenever somebody actually begins to focus on their own happiness, they're always called out for it. So it's just like, come on, pick and choose, people. Like, what is it? Is self-love a good thing or is it a bad thing? Why is everybody so picky about it? It's like they can't really commit to whether or not it's a good or bad thing in theory. And that's kind of what I find annoying about when people bring it up, is because it's just like, the moment somebody does try and just focus on themselves, it's so demonized for some reason. But anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to share on this section. It's a pretty good section, pretty short. So the next one is entitled, tool number 5 is entitled Developing Self-Worth. This one's going to be interesting because self-worth is always something that I personally struggle with. So I think there was another chapter about this earlier. It was brief, and by the looks of this one, it's a bit longer. Oh yeah, this one's a lot longer. So this is going to be a long one. So yeah, and I think we're not quite halfway, but yeah, that'll be the next one. So hopefully I can get to the next one. I don't know, it's Friday now. I don't know, Monday night. I'm going to aim for, at the latest, getting to number 5 up. So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to drop a like. If you got any thoughts or questions you want to share, drop those in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell so you keep up to date on all of the latest readings as they're uploaded. See you guys next time. Take care. Thanks for watching.